This is Stuart Patrick. On this installment of The Internationalist, we're delighted to be joined by Enrique Berruga, who is the president of COMEXI, the Mexican Council on Foreign Relations, and a partner of the Council on Foreign Relations and its new initiative called the Council of Councils. Today I'm going to be talking to Enrique about Mexico's role as host of the G20 and what he sees from that process. Enrique, it's wonderful to be able to have you here with us.
Thank you, Stuart. It's a pleasure.
As I mentioned, Mexico is going to be hosting the 7th summit of the G20 countries in Los Cabos in June. What are the main priorities that President Calderon has set for that meeting, and what are your expectations of what might come out of it?
Well, this is a very crucial meeting because the G20 has to deliver. I think there's no time to spare in terms of waiting for the next year to get some solutions. I would say on the financial front, first of all, to have a different set of rules of the game worldwide. There is mostly agreement to fund additionally the IMF, which is an important step forward, but then the question comes of what are you going to do with all those resources, 500 billion or so more dollars for the IMF. But then how to revamp the system is very, very important in order not to have other cases like Greece or, the various crises that they have had in Europe. But in Mexico's agenda, I think this is very clever. There is the idea of a green fund and green growth, promote green growth, which normally people think that being green is being inefficient, but you can be both. More efficient, cleaner, and at the same time to promote growth in a different manner. And I think that's a very good contribution of Mexico in that respect. And the third layer of the meeting in Los Cabos will be on global governance, something we discussed here at the Council of Councils in that respect. And the third layer of the meeting in Los Cabos will be on global governance, something we discussed here at the Council of Councils. And that is basically, I mean, under what rules are we going to play in order to solve the most important issues of the world?
Best product to sell. We've got the most entertaining destinations in the world.
That's right, folks, we're open for business. The United States is open for business. This is from FinancialTimes.com. Originally more rich Chinese buy U.S. property. China has emerged as one of the fastest growing sources of international buyers for U.S. real estate, and what some see as a sign that China's rich are increasingly seeking to take their money out of the country. Then I have this article, or a couple articles, that I wanted to include at the end of last video, which is the BP announces that Venezuela now has the largest oil reserves in the world. Also, global reserves have been increased by 1.9% from last year. Remember I was saying just in the last report from Wednesday that we actually have more oil right now than we actually need because the prices are still so high, you know. This has nothing to do with supply or anything like that. It's just like everything else, like the stock market. It's a big rigged game of speculation that, and in the commodities market with our food too, so. It says here, Chavez reveals Venezuela has built its first drone. And it says here they partnered up with Iran, Russia, and China. So, you know, people like, you know, some of my relatives and that, they would see this story and be like, oh, we got to do something about Venezuela. They're really become a thorn in our side, right? You know, so, and they see him as a serious threat, Venezuela. So, but remember, BP announces that Venezuela now has the largest oil reserves in the world. Well, let's look at this article. U.S. military wants more drones in Latin America. So Chavez gets his little first drone built, and right away, military wants more drones in Latin America. So they're going to relocate their Predator drones, sending them to South and Central America. So there's not just a surplus of oil, there's a surplus of Predator drones. Remember in the last video as well, they actually have so many drones, they don't have enough people to fly them. And one of the concepts, it's probably not even me that came up with it, but is using children basically and putting in these little laboratories, these little game rooms as they would call them, and the children think they're playing games and they're actually flying real drones and killing people. And who knows, maybe eventually they'll go to that before they just do fully autonomous robotic drones. So yeah, this is just basically this announcement of using these drones in South America or Latin America came right after the Pew Research poll was released, or a study suggesting that the Obama regime's use of unmanned drone strikes to kill terror suspects is widely opposed around the world. I don't know if you remember that. It says here, Northrop Grumman awarded cybersecurity contracts. So they've been awarded this contract, and then I found this one. Boeing receives its first international cybersecurity contract. And it just makes you wonder if it's just the same defense contractors that bring you the drones and all that. Who is the real cybersecurity threat? Well, it's the same companies. Kind of like Norton Antivirus and all them antiviruses, the big ones, Symantec and all that. They're the ones that are creating the viruses most likely. And then they say, oh, update your definitions. I just find it hard that this whole cybersecurity threat is going to be alleviated by having a few corporations that are going to take care of the entire globe's security. So, U.S. backtracks on claims Russia is arming Syrian regime. So, remember, I already talked about this before, but it turns out Russia was telling the truth, and the U.S. State Department today admitted that helicopters they were railing about were actually already owned by the Syrian government, and they had just been sent to Russia for repairs. So, yeah, what they're really concerned about is that they're not going to get in there first and be able to start dropping bombs or throwing 50 cal rounds downrange at civilians, right? They want to be able to get in there and do that first. They don't want the Syrian government doing that and killing some of their terrorists for hire, the rebels. Syrian liberators bearing toy guns. And it goes on here, and it says that a video posted on YouTube contained basically an underground fighters with ski masks and stuff like that. But it said one man in the group declaring the fight is in service of God. That's right. They always, just like in Libya, they have the peace sign, right? Peace. So kind of like basically the rebels dressing up as government forces, smashing down, doing door-to-door raids and stuff like that, basically staging it. Everything was set to project menace and resolve. There was only one problem. The weapons were not weapons at all. They were non-firing plastic children's toys. So all the headlines and links will be posted in YouTube's video description if you're new here. Washington-funded Houla-style massacre, says analysts of the U.S. and NATO have launched a war on Syria by funding and training the terrorists who commit Houla-style massacres in the Arab countries. They're talking about that suicide bomber that was traced back to the rebels. He said it here, or he added that the U.S.-backed coalition is staging a massive casualty-producing event in Syria, namely the killing of civilians and blaming it on the enemy. Quote, this is from this individual professor at the Center of Research of Globalization, Montreal. Quote, this is a war of aggression. It is not necessarily using the instruments of conventional theater wars, which is to come in with artillery and air force and so on, but allied special forces on the ground. So, U.S. bolsters ties to fighters in Syria, CIA helping with logistics but not arms. Officials say that. That's actually coming through the Saudis and Qatar and all that. Somehow they're coming from the West and making their way into the hands of the opposition. But it's not the CIA that's doing it. They're just doing their own little compartmentalization role. So, yeah, that's right. Operatives, CIA operatives, and diplomats have stepped up their contacts with the rebel terrorists in part to help organize their burgeoning military operations against, basically, they're trying to get a regime change. So who knows? Maybe, right? Because they're saying right here the CIA is working with Saudi Arabia, who's supplying the rebels with all these guns, right? And in Libya. So, oh, there's Qatar, yeah. So they say they're providing communications training. Oh, logistical routes. Yeah, we're going to stash a cache of weapons here, and we'll give you the directions. That's what they mean. Israel may use military force to secure Syria's alleged chemical arsenal. So the Israeli army is considering using military force to prevent Syria's alleged chemical warfare stockpiles from getting into the hands of Hezbollah or Al-Qaeda. Says Tel Aviv believes that Damascus is no longer capable of securing its arsenal. So kind of like Iraq. So this is crazy. The largest chemical warfare stockpile in the world, and warn that Assad's regime could treat us the same way as he treats their own people. So, which is a complete lie, and it's coming from Israel, who has the biggest stockpile of nuclear weapons, right? So at least that's what we're told. Iran looks to China and Russia for military support as pressure from the West increases. And they're talking about SCO, which right now includes China, Russia, Kazakhstan, Kyrgyzstan, Tajikistan, Uzbekistan. So it says here Iran has gotten an endorsement from SCO, basically the Shanghai Cooperation Organization. It says here about the unacceptability of force. Well, they're actually doing training exercises using forces. So Putin, Russia ready to respond to U.S. missile defense. So they said here we should look forward to give response to these plans in a timely manner. Then we have Russia and India to start joint military exercises. They're calling it anti-terrorist training scheduled in August, and it's called Indra 2012. Then I found this article, India-U.S. joint military exercise. And this was a 2-week exercise that began in March 5th. So who knows? Maybe they're changing sides, maybe they're not. Maybe it's just a big show. U.S. South Korea call for end to North Korea provocation. So they're doing all the provocation, but they're calling for what? The end to provocative behavior. The countries are going to what? Have a united front and boost cybersecurity.
U.S. and South Korean artillery troops are conducting a joint live-fire drill on Tuesday. They're testing readiness against a potential North Korean artillery attack on the south. 1 U.S. artillery battalion and 2 South Korean artillery units are taking part. The exercise involves the use of the Multiple Launch Rocket System, or MLRS, which provides counterfire and suppression of enemy air defenses, light material, and personnel targets at a range of 9 to 186 miles.
The purpose of this training is to ensure that both the United States Army and the ROK forces are able to coordinate our abilities in a joint fire effort. By doing this type of training, it only reinforces the relationship between us and the ROK Army.
Last week, North Korea made threats to strike South Korean media headquarters, which it accused of hurling insults at the North's new leader, Kim Jong-un.
Okay, so you remember what I was talking about with SCO. Basically, they're what? They're growing. SCO partners are growing. And I came across this article, Troops Units Participating in Peace Mission 2012. So this is an exercise of the Shanghai, basically SCO, that they completed, and it was a what? Anti-terrorism exercise. Then we move closer to home here. Domestic deployment. U.S. Army Chief says military will be used to provide rapid response options and address challenges in the United States itself. Says the Council on Foreign Relations, the CFR, like we saw in the beginning of the video, proposes that the U.S. Army be used to plan, command, carry out these domestic police missions. The CFR would see the Army used to address challenges in the United States itself in order to keep the homeland safe from domestic disasters, including terrorist attacks. So it says here they'll dedicate active duty forces, especially those with niche skills, i.e. killing, close quarters, providing civilian officials, probably many of them CIA and stuff like that, like mayors, with a robust set of reliable and rapid response options, i.e. special forces, getting bankers and that out of skyscrapers. Then we have Black Hills helps soldiers prep for urban warfare. That's right. It's called Golden Coyote Training Exercise. It has military units throughout the country and around the world for one of the largest National Guard training exercises in the United States. So it says here the realism of nearby civilian population. Then you have Kentucky's Guard training with West Virginia's Guardmen. Then we have this, soldiers trained with Bosnia forces. The Ukrainian government preparing for militia to suppress color revolutions created by the CIA. And foreign troops enter into Ukraine for military training. It's a partnership for peace.